Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So we have some FUD, two big pieces of FUD that may impact the markets. So I'm going to cover the FUD. I'm going to cover also my positive outlook on things, but it's very important that we know what's going on out there to protect our bags. So hope all is well out there. But let's get right into it with the big piece of FUD. And it's pretty decent actually. So we have this MicroStrategy. The CEO says that they will sell their Bitcoin if the stock falls below the MNAV premium and fresh capital dries up. So fresh capital would be all the other ones that they have, that offer yield and everything like that so they can accumulate more Bitcoin. But if that dries up and we enter a true bear market, how will this impact strategy? Now, this is huge FUD just because there's a lot of other companies that follow Strategy's playbook. One that comes to mind is MetaPlanet out in Japan, and you have the others that followed suit. Now, if this crashes and burns, this is not good for the space at all because we know Bitcoin leads everything in the crypto space. And if things go down and then you start seeing the ETFs, they start selling out as well because of something like this, that may impact us. So we have to be knowledgeable and we need to follow this story. However, you have Michael Saylor, who's a perma bull, and he's of a different opinion, says that there's nothing to worry about. But let's pay attention and see what's going on here. Also, Strategy said that it will sell only as a last resort. So this is what the CEO is saying. At first I thought it was FUD. Maybe it wasn't no verification to any of this, but for what I'm seeing, and according to this article, there may be some truth to it. CEO said that what Bitcoin did show that if Strategy's multiple to net asset value, which is the MNAV, were to slip under 1 and financing options dry up, unloading Bitcoin becomes mathematically justified to protect what he calls Bitcoin yield per share. He also noted that the move would be the last resort, not a policy shift. I would not want to be the company that sells Bitcoin, he says, adding that the financial discipline has to override emotion when markets turn hostile. So that's key. Market turns hostile. So we have to be aware of that. The positive thing is the Bitcoin did hit that 80,000 mark and then it's jumped up. And currently at the time of this video, we're a little over $90,000. So that is positive. But we need to pay attention to this. So looking at this here, you see that the MNAV current price of MicroStrategy is 177.18. It's crazy to think just last year, the end of last year around this time, MicroStrategy was around $400, $500 per share. Bananas. But if we look at the MNAV currently, it's at 1.13, and you see there that it's a no net positive or net negative. So it needs to stay at this price or go a little bit higher. I'm optimistic to think that it will go higher. So hopefully this doesn't come to pass. Also, strategy. Michael Saylor, like I said before, still perma bull. He posted this today saying, what if we start adding green dots? Kind of hinting that he may be buying, or MicroStrategy may be buying more Bitcoin. So kind of like, you hear this on the one side, let's be cautious, price is going down, but then you hear him saying, let's buy more, or hinting that we should buy more. He may know something that we don't know, right? He rubs elbows with the big dogs, not the little guys. So he may know what's coming up in the future. So we'll see. We shall see. Also, other big piece of FUD is Tether. Tether, we know, is very profitable, especially when Bitcoin was rising, hitting all-time highs because they also hold Bitcoin. But there may be some FUD out there. And Tether always has FUD around it ever since I entered this space, and they always overcame the FUD, right? According to Greg Ashuri, he says that Tether has 174 billion in liabilities and only 139 billion in cash to cover it. It's a ticking time bomb at this point. He suggests that he would exit USDT, the stablecoin, to be safe. So he's not saying, anything, but just to be safe. And this is based on something that Arthur Hayes posted. Arthur Hayes, big in the community, says Tether folks are already in the early innings of running a massive interest rate trade. How I read this audit is that they think the Fed will cut rates, which crushes their interest income. In response, they are buying gold and BTC that should, in theory, moon as the price of money falls. So a roughly 30% decline in gold and Bitcoin position would wipe out their equity. And then USDT would be, in theory, insolvent. I'm sure some large holders and exchanges will demand a real-time view of their BS so they can assess solvency risk of Tether. Get out your popcorn. I expect the MSM to run wild with this, especially all the editors with DTS who want to blank on Lutnick and Cantor for backing this stablecoin. So this is a problem, possibly. So everything's riding and hinging on this price, the price of Bitcoin, right? So this is also some FUD to take a look at. So we have MSTR and we have Tether, one of the biggest in the space. Let's pay attention to that. So this week is also huge. We got some big things going on in the macroeconomics world. So we have some reports coming out this week. Because of the government shutdown, things are delayed. So what we'll be getting is, the month prior. So we'll be getting September's information. So on Monday, December 1st, looks like Fed Chair is going to be speaking around 8 p.m. December 2nd, we have a Vice Chair of Supervision, Michelle Bowman. She's going to testify. Then we have December 3rd, Wednesday, some ADP numbers, which is going to talk about payroll and how the employment sector is doing here in the U.S. ISM services will also report. Number 4, everyone's going to be looking at this, the initial jobless claims, because economy is showing signs of weakening. And if that goes on, it's bad news for the economy, but it's also positive for us to get more rate cuts, more aggressive rate cuts. And why is that important? Rate cuts, lower interest rates, and it's going to help tech. Why does it help tech? A lot of tech companies have a lot of debt. They carry a lot of debt. And if the interest goes down on the debt that they carry, it's going to definitely help that space. Tech equals crypto. Also, Friday, we have a big one, which is the core PCE index. It's basically personal consumer expenditures, how much consumers are spending. Is there, not withdrawal, but are they hesitating on spending just because they're not making enough money? And also, inflation is killing everything. So a lot of big things coming up this week. I can't wait to see what the reports say and how it's going to impact the markets. Also, let's take a look at the price of Bitcoin at the time of this video. Bitcoin is currently at 91,477, ETH at 3,000, XRP 219, Solana 138, Doge at 14 cents, ADA at 42 cents, and Hype's at 33 bucks. So there's been some green. If you look at the last 7 days, it's all green, but these are definitely not the prices we were expecting to see, especially so late in the year. We were expecting moon prices, and moon is not happening. Fear and greed currently at 20, so we're still in fear. Now let's take a look at this. Maybe this can explain the price of Bitcoin a little bit. Why, it's been going down, not really hitting new all-time highs. So Look On Chain posted this. A whale sold 500 BTC worth about 45 million USD 9 hours ago to cut his losses, losing over 10.5 million. He had tried to buy the dip on October 14th, withdrawing 500,000 BTC, but the dip kept dipping. So a lot of whales, sometimes when an old whale, no activity for years, they sell their Bitcoin, the market freaks out and thinking that they're selling for whatever reason. And some of that could be true. They're selling for lifestyle chips, maybe buying a new house, retiring, whatever the case may be. But others are also trying to sell so they can buy more when it dips. Not to say that they're completely out of the market. Sometimes that works, and in this case, it doesn't work. So not every time you see an old wallet move, it means that they're selling out of the market. They're getting out of the market. They don't believe in Bitcoin anymore. Sometimes it's just a move to try to accumulate more. They made so much in profit from buying way back when, and now they see the prices going down. They could increase their bags, and sometimes it works out. Also, spot Bitcoin ETFs brought in 70 million BTC last week, and it's good because if you look here, just look at this. Just outflow week after week. Now we're starting to see some positive gains. Since the ETFs began, I don't think we've seen this many outflows except for here. Around this period here, there's a lot of outflows. But it's just been a lot of green, then outflow. Can we consider or continue this pattern? where there's the outflow, and then we see something like this, where just big inflows. That would be nice, and that will coincide with the end of fourth quarter. This guy George Toast posted, one green week after multi-week bleed means sentiment has bottomed. I agree with that. Institutions will start to reload. We just saw about 70 million. Fear is flushing out. Spot demand starting to wake up. And this is exactly how reversals start. So we got some FUD to look at in the beginning, what I talked about. But there's also some positive signs as well. Let's take a look at this. Tom Lee, still ETH bull. Although ETH has been down tremendously since he got in. I'm sure he lost a lot, but he's just like the sailor of ETH. He's still buying. Bitmine, the company that he's behind, just bought another $50 million worth of ETH. Let's see. I hope it works out. Also, Wells Fargo warns rotation out of tech and consumer stocks incoming. Bank, Wells Fargo that is, favors financials and 2 other sector plays. Now, when banking people come out and say things, I take that with a grain of salt. Because obviously they don't want crypto to proceed, because that's the beginning of their demise, basically, right? But part of this rationale, this rep is coming out saying that because of rate cuts and because of current interest rates, they're pretty high. Because of that, tech is not going to be as profitable because they hold a lot of debt in order to grow their companies. He thinks if the rates remain high, that who favors the banks, right? With the interest rates and all of that. So that's where he's thinking that you should probably play. Said financials, industrials, and utilities. So I just thought I'd cover that, just because if he is warning, this rep of Wells Fargo is running that there's a rotation out of tech, that means AI and crypto. So I found that interesting and figured I'd cover it. And I recognize that, but for reasons I'm about to cover now, I'm still in tech and crypto. So breaking, Hassett, who's currently part of the administration, may be tapped to be the next Fed chair. Jerome is supposed to be out February 2026, and this guy may be the lead candidate. Why is that important? Because he supports crypto, he wants faster rate cuts, and he wants QT to end ASAP. So QT, according to Powell and the Fed, is going to end December 1st. So that should help. And he also supports managed QE, money to printing. Last time we printed money, it was crazy for the markets. That's when we went crazy with Doge and all the memes and everything like that. People would just risk on 100%. And also the administration's talking about $2,000 stimulus checks, which should happen mid next year, which will coincide with a new Fed chair. So those are all positive. So there's a lot of bad out there, but there's some positive too. So it's just a matter of just, risk management, right? Also, we have a rate cut set for December 10th. And right now there's an 86.4 chance that we will get a 0.25 cut, which is also positive for the markets. So let's see what happens. Also, we have another Fed meeting January 28th of next year. And right now there's only about a 23% chance that we'll get a rate cut. But 2 weeks ago, we weren't supposed to get a cut in December. So anything can change. A lot of macro events can change this. But this is all bullish for tech and crypto. Also, I saw this article, how a weakening U.S. labor market is putting pressure on Bitcoin and crypto prices. And this is accurate. If people don't have money, they're jobless. Crypto and spending money on speculative assets is not where they're trying to spend money on. They're trying to survive. So when you have an economy that's booming, typically risky assets are doing pretty well as well. Here, let's look at these ADP numbers that are coming out this week. But I see that the job market is weakening, partly due to AI and high interest rates. And I'm sure the Fed sees it as well. So hopefully with some future rate cuts and positive things happening in the future, the war ending here in the Ukraine, that could be positive for everything. So I just want to leave off with this here. So this can be good, right? Look at all these Bitcoin treasury companies here. We have Strategy, number one, Mara, MetaPlanet, Coinbase. The list goes on and on. GameStop owns some. Just a lot of big companies own it. And if they don't own it, they own MicroStrategy as an on-ramp to Bitcoin. Not to mention all the ETFs, all the different countries that own Bitcoin. So this is positive because if strategy holds tight and the price of Bitcoin continues to go up and they don't have to sell any, all of this is just going to increase, and that's just going to help crypto. Now, the problem is if they actually have to sell and there's a domino effect where a lot of these companies start unloading Bitcoin. And that's what we don't want to see. And the purpose of this video is just to let us know what the risks are out there, but to also show that there's positives. So it's just a matter of what side you're on. Me, I'm on the side of sticking with Bitcoin. If the price goes down, I'm going to buy more. I know what this asset represents, and I know what the current fiat I hold is right now. I know that it's diminishing in power. And this will only increase when the world wakes up and understands what Bitcoin truly means and what it does for us. So that is it today, my friends. Just we have some FUD out there, right? The Tether FUD and the MSTR FUD. Let's just watch it. We have some big macro news this week, rate cut next week, and hopefully the prices of all the cryptos and our AI projects just go up. So that's my video for today. Hope you guys like it. Please give me a follow if you want to see more content of just me following this market, how I'm positioning myself with my investments, and later.